Hello! What's up?
Hey.
This is a new episode of Nerd Variety Podcast. Thank you for joining us all.
You're welcome.
I am.
Yeah, you are welcome. I'm joining you.
Okay.
I'm here too.
Yes. I'm Josh, and I'm joined by Hunter.
Hi, Josh.
I'm joined by Hunter, the Ruthless Rafferty.
That's what they call me.
Yeah, he's all out of Ruth.
I've never called you that.
I have no Ruth. No more Ruths.
No, he doesn't. And Hannah, the Highlander Hogan.
I don't know what that means.
There can be only one. There can be only one, though.
There can be only one.
Yeah.
That's me.
As far as we know, there's only one of her.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
My secret.
We're not counting the multiverse, though.
Yeah, that would complicate things.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
But yes, this is a new episode, and we nerds all enjoy, reading and watching and about some characters doing outlandish feats of strength and intelligence. Everyone wants to see their favorite characters win, or no matter what. But is hunting the sun a little extreme? I mean, how do y'all feel about that?
I mean, I do that on a regular basis. So.
It depends.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know Hunter. Hunter said he hasn't been outside today, so I
thought about it. I looked outside. I was outside in a video game. That counts for something.
Okay. But you just decided not to go out, maybe hunt the sun if you could.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But so you guys don't think that's extreme at all? That's a little overpowered if you can, hunt the sun like a beach ball?
No.
Okay. Well.
I don't understand why you would want to do that.
Who does that?
I don't know anyone in particular, but if you can, then you might be overpowered. And and especially in older, forms of entertainment, and a lot more so in newer ones, we see that, very predominantly. But do we like overpowered characters?
It depends.
Depends.
So, what's your argument about it, Josh?
It does fuel the fantasy, sci-fi genre to have a character that can go above and beyond to, save everyone or do the thing or, fix the problem.
So when I say it depends, I feel like it mostly depends on the medium that we're looking at. So, if you're going to compare something like a classic superhero show, something like Superman or Batman, then you're wanting more grounded, realistic characters, especially Batman, right? He needs to be in, he's just a normal human, technically. He needs to be within the realm of possibility. But if you're watching anime, that's different, because anime is just already over the top and ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would say it depends also on just how it's presented, I guess, because in I immediately blanked on the word as soon as I wanted to say it. Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, all that stuff. It gets ridiculous. It gets to a point where it's like, this person's super overpowered, but this person's even more overpowered, and then this person's even stronger than them, and then it keeps going. It's like, okay, this person was supposed to be the ultimate overpowered person, and now you're saying this person's even more overpowered. So what's going on?
It kind of gives the impression that there was a story, and here are the stakes, and then the story became popular, and they're like, okay, well, we need to keep it going, so more stakes, more stakes, more dramatic, harder villains, and they just go on and on forever.
Yeah, this is the same show like Dragon Ball Z, especially, that started out with a character that the first villain was someone who could destroy a planet with a finger gun, and then moved on to I don't even know, someone that could destroy a whole solar system by like the end of the second, quote unquote, third season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they also had a concept of power levels, and I don't know whatever happened to that.
They just, as Hannah said, I blanked on your name for a second, Hannah. It just, they kept going, and they just kept having to raise the stakes, and it was just like, yeah, okay.
And I feel like it can be done really well. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But I feel like there are times that you have an overpowered character and they just have to face like a badder and a worse and worse villain who's stronger and stronger. But then I feel like there's also times where it's like they're super powerful, but they need to defeat the villain in like a specific way where their power is not necessarily helpful.
Yeah.
And I think if you take it that route, you've turned this sort of trope into something that actually becomes really interesting and compelling.
Yeah,
Right.
and I do think that's something, and I can even just continue to use like Dragon Ball as an example, actually as an example of how not to do it and how better to do it. And that's just the simple comparison of like Dragon Ball GT to Dragon Ball Super. In GT, it was that he got, like, there was Super Saiyan 1, and then Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, and then in GT he got Super Saiyan 4, and then it just like kept getting ridiculous. And then in Super, so it was just like in that they just basically kept increasing his power level and so on and so forth. But then in Super, it got to a point where it was less about just increasing power level and more about learning different techniques. And then there was the big form that he got at the end, near the end of it, where it was it Ultimate or
Ultra Instinct was at the very end. Yeah.
And so that was one where it wasn't so much a greater power level, but it was just like a different state of being, I guess, for him, where he like his body would just kind of move and react on its own. So it did have like a level of risk to it, and it was kind of tough to get to that, for him to get to that point. And again, it was more reactionary instead of based solely on power.
Yeah.
And I think that was, again, right there, you just have a way to do it and then a way not to do it. You don't just keep increasing power levels, you make it something
where you different. Have to kind of earn it.
Yeah.
Or the character has to kind of learn something, or maybe lose a couple times before they can, realize, okay, this is how I do it. This is what I wasn't doing right the first time. And even with Dragon Ball, there was I've been watching that and watching the movie that came out with the new Broly movie. It was learning with Goku and Vegeta, both of them trying to overpower the other, but it was one thing about them learning to work together to fight someone, instead of just both of them trying to get to strongest power level they could.
Yeah.
A lot of lessons to it's usually a learning lesson, but sometimes it's good to just have a character that's has his power level for a reason, so you can do all these like crazy things. Like go ahead, Hannah.
I was gonna say, I also think about Avatar in terms of like when the Avatar, clearly the most powerful being, when he enters the Avatar state, or she, it's essentially this. I guess you could sort of call it like I don't know, kind of like a sacrifice. Like they have this like amazing attack power, but all of a sudden their defense goes down really low, and it's like you can seriously, like, that's kind of the time where they're the most vulnerable. And so you're seeing sort of this dichotomy of like gaining all of this power and being really like can destroy an army in seconds, but one well aimed lightning blast and you're done.
Yeah.
So I think it's also an interesting way to sort of keep things in balance and make it so it's not just kind of this destruction, like nothing can beat this guy kind of thing. It's a nice way to sort of even the playing field, if you will.
Yeah. For that form, it's you're right. Like attack increases by 2 or 50%, but your defense is lower by 50%, and then you also lose control if you don't have control already, if you
Right.
didn't master it already.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think just here we actually, in my mind, kind of established a good idea of what is or how overpowering works well and how it doesn't work well. So like when we were saying it depends, I think that is kind of how it depends, on if it's done in a way that makes sense, and like someone can be overpowered but they still have flaws.
Right.
Like
Yeah, I was gonna
vulnerabilities.
say, a really super powerful character who's also prideful is really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
overconfident.
A lot of anime characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, versus like it done poorly being, again, they're like someone's just getting more powerful just for the sake of being more powerful, and like nothing can really
I
stop
feel
them.
like when
Yeah.
that happens, I feel like it runs the risk of being just kind of ridiculous and also repetitive.
Yeah.
Whereas giving a little bit more dynamic to the character keeps it fresh and interesting. And I did want to ask you guys, because I don't know as much about this as I think you guys do, but I want to know about One Punch Man. Because
I've
isn't
only
he
watched a
like
couple episodes.
the do you guys know anything about him?
Yeah, I've
I think
watched the
Josh
first
does.
season. I watched the
Okay.
first season all the way. I was like I watched the first 2 episodes of the second season. But he is this guy who wanted to be a hero, and he decided to commit to a regimen of 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, run 10 miles a day, no air conditioning. There's some other stuff involved there, but he does it every day, and he ends up, like, you know, feels like he feels like he's destroying his body in the process, but in the process he loses his hair. I think somehow gains while doing this training, somehow gains like just like godlike level of strength, speed, and ability to punch anything out and with kill anything with one punch.
Well,
And
and
so
that's why I asked, because I feel like when you say overpowered characters, he's the first one that comes to mind.
yeah,
But like,
yeah,
how do they keep the show fresh?
it's more of like he comes in. He's a hero, but he's also kind of socially inept. He's he wants to be known for being a hero, but people don't really take him seriously. They think some I think in some episodes I thought he was cheating, and he was taking credit for other heroes' work. Um, but when the city's being destroyed by some kind of kaiju or titan, and he's aware of it. He can walk in there and destroy it with one punch and save everybody. But he's also surrounded by other characters that are other heroes that are like higher ranked, but they're not on his level, and you can see how they kind of respond to him and how like.
So it seems like
the
it's
city's
less
kind of
about
dependent on heroes.
it's less about like the fight scenes, because it doesn't sound like there are much of fight scenes at all, but more about like social interactions between people.
Well, I mean, there are some fight scenes though, because you'll have the other heroes that
Right.
will fight,
Sure.
and maybe not succeed as much,
But
and
the
then you'll
thing
have
that makes
him
the
who'll
character
come.
interesting.
Yeah, it's his personality, and the fact that it's kind of making fun of the hero just always wins in the end trope, where he does win, but you also see him kind of craving like an actual like fight.
Gotcha.
And actually feel like he's actually has to work for it, because right now he's just punch flick, I won. And he also has bad luck as a normal person. He loses his hair. He wants to do this and that, but he always misses the appointment or misses the sale or something like that.
It's funny.
Yeah, so it's a different way of writing an overpowered character and just making fun of the genre. But we mentioned some good examples of characters. We mentioned, of course, like DC comic characters like Superman, Wonder Woman,
for sure.
Flash. And let's see, anime protagonists like One Punch Man, Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro, Dragon Ball characters. Any others that come to mind as when you think overpowered?
For anime or
anime, yeah.
Oh, in anime specifically?
Yeah, anime specifically, yeah.
The one other thing that I think about is, and I feel like there's a lot of different animes to do this, but the one I think of is Fairy Tail, where they have these characters and it's just, they're not necessarily overpowered, but they kind of are. But it's this idea of like, oh no, I've been beaten down and I'm hurting and I'm losing, but the power of friendship. And then they come back and they're even stronger than ever. And I feel like that kind of plays into that overpowered. It's like they just never lose because my friends believe in me. And it's like, okay. I mean, I love the show, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
but
no
it's
hate
just
on
kind of ridiculous.
no hate on the show, and I told Todd Havercorn I'd try to watch it when I saw him at Comic-Con last year, but I still haven't gotten around to it just because of that trope.
Yeah, and again, I feel like that happens sometimes, and definitely in like big boss battles that happens. But I feel like a lot of the time the characters do have to be a little bit more clever, and the villains that they face are different. But it is a lot of like Natsu specifically being like, I can't beat this guy, and they're like, but we believe in you, and he's like, okay, then I can beat him, and you're like, all right, yeah, you do that.
Yeah. A lot of anime protagonists are usually if they're not immediately overpowered, they end up being overpowered by this end of the season.
The power of friendship.
Yeah, sorry, it makes me think of again, really Dragon Ball Z abridged with okay, how about we just punch him harder? Okay. And it works.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that trope.
Happens.
There's nothing wrong with that trope. And if you are watching a show that it works for, then that's fine. But again, with something more serious, like if you were watching DC Comics and Superman was like, he was like, I can't do it, I can't beat this guy, but my friends believe in me. You'd be like, what is happening?
No, Superman pretty much can beat anyone because he has all the powers.
A lot of it's just him remembering like, oh, I'm not human. I can actually do this. I need to stop holding back. And
I feel like I've seen things where Superman like has legitimately struggled.
Yeah, that's with him being ridden inconsistently.
Really?
Over the past 80-something years.
I mean, I think that it actually is a better story for him to struggle. Like, you don't want to make it... And I guess that plays into the whole overpowered characters thing, is you don't want to be too easy. And I think especially when you have a character who's supposed to be, like, invincible, all-powerful, all of this stuff, for him to, like, legitimately have trouble with someone is a good way to write a story. As long as you're not doing that whole thing where it's like, you know, we're just dealing with badder villains all the time.
Yeah. And with him specifically, it's him throwing off his human, remembering that he's human, and then doing the thing to save the day. But I think, you know, with him, if you want to keep it consistent, just remember that, you know, he's got these. If you try to limit him to these specific, character power traits, and then keep the story rolling. And that way you could, you know, of course he'll have things where he can win easily, but some things he'll actually have to have people helping him out with.
Well, and I especially think it, I don't know if this is a thing, but I feel like, you know, maybe if he's able to beat any villain, then that's one thing, but maybe like he has to, you know, prevent a natural disaster or something, or like there are bigger things other than just villains that maybe would be a compelling, like, yeah, you could beat anybody you want, but like this is a way bigger problem than that.
Usually that ends up just being usually ends up being like a psychological thing, like I won, but all these people were killed, or I had to cross a line, or you know we didn't you know someone had to pay a price, something like that. Yeah.
But I think there are interesting ways to write it, so it's not, you know, he just beats up everybody all the time.
Yeah. What about characters that can heal from anything?
I was gonna say Wolverine is.
I was gonna say Deadpool.
Wolverine and Deadpool.
Yeah. Wolverine is definitely like one of the first ones I think of, especially in the. I hate to mention it. Last Stand. It wasn't that bad. It was pretty bad.
It had.
It wasn't no X2.
No, it was no X1 or X2.
It was no.
It's not. Yeah, it's down there.
But the scene, like, he's the only one essentially who can stop Jean Grey from destroying everything. Is definitely shows how powerful he is, and he's like, I'm confused honestly about how old he's supposed to be. There's been so many origin stories, but it seems like he's pretty old.
I think he's
been around a long time.
Well, if we're taking X-Men Origins into account, I think he was in like born in
Yeah.
like 1880s something.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
late 1800s. Because I read the one that the comic's based off of, and it had him in the 1800s, and it's just him losing his memory is why he can only remember, like the last like 20, 30, maybe 20ish years of his
Right.
life,
Yeah.
and then I think with some help from Xavier, he does remember more.
Right.
But I think
Yeah. Right.
Wolverine and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I literally like my brain just stopped working because I took a sip of my drink and got like carbonation all up in my nose and almost started crying. So.
Are you drinking a soda?
No, it's just a carbonated water, but I was just
Oh.
like had to like reorient myself for a second. So I'm sorry if I just started not making sense.
Dang it! I had an you ruined my opportunity to bash sodas.
Oh well,
we can still bash sodas.
it's
Bash
just sparkling
sodas.
water.
They're bad. They're bad for you. Don't drink
It's
them.
tasty.
And they destroy your brain.
Yes, this is your brain. This is your brain on soda.
Everything destroys your brain. So.
Yes.
Maybe.
Except listening to us. Listening to us actually rebuilds your brain. It
Actually
fixes
does.
your brain.
I guess as
Yeah.
a teacher, I shouldn't say everything destroys your brain. But no, I was like talking to my husband, and they're like, "Oh, such and such a thing causes cancer," and I'm like, "Everything causes cancer. Like
a lot of things will cause cancer.
like bananas have a small amount of radiation. Like
Yeah.
just
We're this is post-nuclear age. Radiation's everywhere.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. Anyway.
Speaking of radiation, the Hulk is another like.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll
way
just
to bring it back, Josh.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It was
Speaking
natural.
of radiation, yeah, Hulk.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna get angrier and get stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's always been my defense or argument for why the Hulk is the strongest like comic book character or anything, because like he just keeps getting stronger the angrier he gets.
Yeah.
And he can't really. Can he be killed? I don't remember.
I think no, because there's that really
like
heart-wrenching scene.
like not
Bruce
Banner.
Banner.
Bruce Banner.
Bruce
Thank
Banner,
you.
yeah.
Bruce Banner can be killed.
Right, but
Yes.
there's that really heart-wrenching scene. I don't remember what movie it's in, but they're trying to get the gang back together, if you will, and he mentions that like
You're talking about Avengers.
one of them, yeah.
It was the first Avengers.
I don't know, but a little bit of a trigger warning here. He talks about like trying to kill himself, and the Hulk literally won't let him.
Yeah. That was
and
the first Avengers. That was actually the first time you see that guy. I'm blanking on his name. I'm blanking on everything.
Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo. That was the first time Mark Ruffalo came in as Bruce.
But I just remember watching that scene, and like I feel like everyone's heart just dropped when he said that. It's like,
yeah, that was actually a deleted scene from the Incredible Hulk, because he goes to like the Arctic or the like really like up in Alaska somewhere where it's icy and cold and remote, and he has a gun and he's about to do it, but then he gets stressed out, and the Hulk pops up and crushes the gun. Yeah,
but definitely seems like at the very least he's very hard to kill.
Yeah, it's more of like a curse than that much power is more of a curse.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We also have. He's kind of DC Comics, but Dr. Manhattan as an overpowered.
Yeah. Dr. Manhattan,
Watchmen.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's
Blue
surrounded
guy,
by
mostly naked.
Yeah, Blue Man.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Blue Man Group.
He's the honorary member of the Blue Man Group.
That doesn't help.
No, not really. That part's a lie. He's definitely overpowered, but I mean, he is also done well, I think, in the graphic novel and everything. Where because he does have a weakness, but like I don't think he's really aware of it. But Adrian is, and he knows how to exploit it.
Yeah.
And he ends up basically defeating Dr. Manhattan, essentially, if you could call it
temporarily.
Yeah. He's able to get away with his plan by exploiting Dr. Manhattan's weakness.
to an extent, he kind of stalls him out by doing that.
Yeah.
But then he also is able to use where his power came from to cause like gaps where he can't cause gaps where in his view, because he can see past, present, and future. So if you use the quantum energy or some kind of intrinsic field thing, you can keep him from seeing what's going on. But the big thing with him is that he's kind of lost his humanity because he's so powerful. This is the guy that we're going to defeat here in a little bit, but can walk on Mars and create structures and buildings. He talked about creating life in another galaxy, so that's how far beyond he's gone. But he just loses that humanity, and he kind of forgets how to relate to people, understand the important things.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we mentioned Wolverine, but we didn't actually mention Jean Grey / the Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
Because literally, Wolverine was the only person who could take her down.
Yeah.
Because she just like think you into dust. She doesn't even have to snap. She just thinks about it, and you're dead.
Yeah.
She's definitely up there.
Yeah. And she's also one of those characters that loses her humanity and her here and now, because her she's with that cosmic power. You just don't think about my human friends and their problems, and
yeah
we all understand.
I think has made her, I don't know if it's that specifically, but it's kind of made her difficult to write in movies, to translate in movies. Obviously we've seen Last Stand and Dark Phoenix, and neither of those really did a great job with her.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's just why, it's, I don't know, maybe because it's hard to really show how powerful she is like that.
Yeah.
And they always have to like bring her to the good side or back to humanity some way.
Yeah. Figure out how to direct that power to handle whatever's going on at the moment in the right way, instead of her just, destroying everything.
Yeah.
Let's see. Those are some comic book characters.
I have another comic book character.
Another one.
Or if we want to move on, I can talk about it if we get to video games at some point as well. It works for both.
Yeah. Well, I had horror monsters as one, and we can kind of go video games after that. But just horror monsters in general, the serial killer, the monster always happens to be one step ahead of the people that are trying to survive. Somehow they're giving people that are so easy to kill and make really dumb decisions. And they have like inhuman stamina after getting shot, stabbed, and set on fire. I know the Friday the 13th game has Jason doing his, I think it's like they specifically gave him an ability called teleportation, so he could just find wherever the people, his victims were, and just show up and kill them.
Yeah, you show up behind them and you just can grab them and like beat them to death, stab them, whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay, I'm safe now. Nope.
Yeah, he was one I was definitely going to bring up, because he just like doesn't die. Like, how many Friday the 13th movies were there? I don't even know.
Is he like a zombie? I don't know too much about like what happened, how he became like Jason.
I don't remember exactly. I've seen like the first 3, maybe the first 4, but I don't remember. I know he's not really in the first one very much. He's mentioned in it, and he comes in at the very end. But he kind of, because like he drowned as a kid and then like comes back somehow. Again, how he comes back, I don't remember. But
yeah. But you guys had any more video game characters to mention?
So for me, obviously this is in my mind because I just played it recently, but The Darkness from The Darkness, and which again was also a comic book series. I haven't read much of the comic books because it's kind of tough to get into, but the games I love, especially the first one, and it's basically the darkness is like a super powerful entity that was basically the first thing in existence. That's the idea of it. There's the darkness, and actually they do a fun little intro kind of recap in the second one. It's like, in the beginning there was nothing. There, like, literally there was just the darkness, and then God said, let there be light, and then there was light, and the darkness didn't like that because it wanted to be the only thing. So there's all this, and it's really cool. It basically has to attach itself to a host to live, a human host, and that's how it ends up doing all its stuff. In the series, you play as Jackie Estacado, who's the host at that point, and he's part of the the mafia or something. And so he's perfect. He helps feed the darkness basically by killing a bunch of people, and that's exactly what it wants, because it feeds off of that, and also gives him essentially unlimited strength. But again, the darkness tries its best to control its host and actually prefers it, but it can have some trouble from time to time, so it kind of has to do its own thing. But you see these two heads usually that kind of are interacting. They can do like anything. They can open up like a little black hole that does basically what black holes do, except I don't think it sends anything anywhere. I think it just like sucks the life out of people.
Yeah.
It rips people to shreds super easily. It can like charge guns with like darkness energy, and it does all this crazy stuff. And you can summon darklings, which are like minions of the dark, and it can heal Jackie. It essentially can stop him from dying. But it's interesting because of course it doesn't like the light. It actually can't really survive in the light naturally.
So it has kind of a drawback. It's like you can do all these things and it's kind of well ranged, but it just light.
Yeah.
Is the simple is the Achilles heel.
Yeah. So like you go around having to take out all the lights and everything, and then there are a few sequences where you see it just like has full control. There's like an eclipse near the end of the first game, and so there's like no light, and it's out in there, and it just like gets massive and just like destroys everything so easily, and it's just wonderful. So it can be like super overpowered, but again, it is balanced out pretty well with a nice weakness.
Yeah, to where it's rewarding to be like, okay, I took out all the lights so I could do the thing and destroy everything and win.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a lot of examples of overpowered characters. So what are some of the most impressive things you've seen a character do, like just outlandish physics breaking things? Hannah?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I definitely think about, in terms of physics breaking, I think about the Flash.
Yeah.
Just because, like, as someone who has studied physics, I'm well aware of like that whole how important speed is in like how much force is behind something that's moving really quickly. And it's like, if he could move faster than the speed of sound, like he should be able to essentially be One Punch Man, right? And just knock anybody out or kill them with a single punch, moving fast enough, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen iterations of his characters where he can like move his molecules fast enough to like go through walls and things like that. And it's like that to me is kind of like ridiculous, but I love it.
Yeah. The time where he saves, like, there's a comic strip where he saves everyone in a city before an atomic bomb can detonate. He gets every single person out of that city and somewhere where they can't, where the radiation won't have any effect, or they won't be affected by the shockwave or the radiation or the heat. Yeah, he's done a lot of just okay, cool.
Yeah, and supposedly can actually travel, or can travel. It has traveled faster than the speed of light. I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has, but it's weird.
Well,
because I'm pretty sure you always
possible.
see him and the light and everything. So
right. Yeah. Well, and the speed of light is just a weird physics topic as well, because if you're traveling the speed of light, things that are also traveling at the speed of light still look like they're traveling at the speed of light. It's a thing. Yeah. So that gets weird.
Yeah. Well, I was also really quick gonna. I can't speak too much on it because I've not played this game or anything. I've seen some stuff on it, but if any of you are familiar with Asura's Wrath, the game, basically this guy it's like super anime. Basically, I don't know if it's actually based on that. I think it's just a game, but he's got like 6 arms or something, I think. I don't know. And there's like this massive, I guess he's like a god or something. And he's like the size of a planet or more. And he like puts his finger down to like destroy the planet. And Asura just like punches his finger. And like he does it so hard that it, I think, shatters or destroys this guy that's like bigger than a planet.
Destroys that entity, that person.
Yeah, I as far as I know, yeah, it's ridiculous. You can look up a video, I'm sure, on YouTube. But I've been meaning to play the game, but it's one of those probably just looks cooler than it plays. I don't know.
Yeah. One was, of course, going back to DC Comics. There was I think the beginning of the most recent Justice League arc, and during this there's a whole apocalypse they have to stop, and it starts out with Martian Manhunter assuming a form where he can destroy the moon. So he destroys the moon. He destroys it completely, because if he didn't, then things would have been a lot worse.
Asteroids.
So he destroys the moon. He destroys the moon where it won't be a problem anymore. So Superman decides, and Superman goes at the end of the crisis. He goes and repairs the moon.
Naturally.
Yeah. He repairs the moon. The whole moon's fixed by the end of the comic. It takes him a whole comic to finish repairing the moon.
How?
Don't question it.
I don't think super glue is one of Superman's powers.
It's like I guess he's a combination of like super speed, heat vision, and super strength, but no.
Yeah,
man.
A lot of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, it's like okay. I know he's yes, he can bench the planet, but repairing the moon is that's just
yeah,
it's
a bit much.
It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of left out it from it, Stephen King, all that. And yeah, basically it feels almost invincible a lot of times, like, because it gets power from people's fears.
Yeah. And it's a very, very metaphysical kind of like, or very abstract way of getting power.
Yeah. So, like it, and of course, the more it stands to reason, the more something will hurt you, or it looks like it can hurt you, the more scared you're going to be. And then the more scared you are, again, that's the more powerful it's going to become. So it just, it kind of keeps going. And I think that makes him pretty OP.
Yeah, he just, especially with him being able to turn into a giant spider monster, or basically just shapeshift into anything he wants. No matter how, like, from like either realistic or completely fictional. Like, he turned into a painting, the painting that this boy was scared of. That was wild.
Yeah.
Me and Hannah were talking about Avatar, specifically Avatar Kyoshi.
Okay.
Yeah, because she made an island.
Yeah.
She I think she separated a continent from another part of the continent with her earthbending, and was just like, yeah, you're gonna go be your own thing.
Yeah.
I feel like we should also mention bloodbending.
Oh yeah. That
just
was
as an overpowered skill.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm assuming that's from Avatar, but there's
Yeah.
also a character in Mortal Kombat that does that. At least I'm assuming it's the same thing.
How does the Mortal Kombat character do it?
So she can take blood out of other people and turn it into a weapon and stab them with it and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's nothing
it's
like
a lot
that,
of
really.
different stuff, but okay.
Yeah.
It's essentially anyone who knows how to do bloodbending can essentially just control a human body. I don't know if it's specifically bloodbending, but it's this idea. It's a water bending technique.
Yeah,
it's this
very
idea
advanced.
that the human body is about 70% water, and so if you understand that, you just can control a person.
Yeah,
I think
just more of puppeteering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
more
she
like
can
puppeteering.
also do that, but again, I think it's through blood instead of water.
Right.
Her name's Scarlet. If you want to look her up at some point, do some research.
I mean, if you're, bloodbending, you're just, basically just controlling everything that has water, all the water that's in the body.
Right. And there's very
just,
few
moving them, contorting them, and
there's very few characters who know how to do it, and the most noteworthy one being Katara, but she refuses on principle 99.99% of the time.
Yeah.
So there is that drawback of it being very invasive and
horrifying.
Yeah, just kind of a terrible thing to do to somebody.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you get. So yeah, those are some impressive character feats or some really overpowered abilities that we mentioned. And to wrap things up, do we prefer more relatable or realistic characters versus characters that are seemingly overpowered?
It depends.
Yeah, again, it depends.
I think that ties back to what we talked about at the beginning. Is it depends on how they do it, because if it's just let's just punch them harder, or I can do it with the power of friendship, and it's all that stuff kind of gets overdone and ridiculous and repetitive. But I feel like there are ways that you can do it that make it really interesting. That let's say that even when you have an overpowered character, you can still give them very realistic human struggles, and I think that's where it gets interesting. I feel like you can still take those characters and make them relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, some days.
So well, no one else has anything to say.
Some days I'm more I'm gonna watch something outlandishly fantasy, or see somebody go God mode and
I know.
Headbutt a planet.
But I think not to gush on Avatar too much. It's only
okay. So you're done.
Ever.
She's
I think
never done.
one of the never. I think one of the things that makes the show so remarkable is you have all these amazingly powerful characters, like the Avatar, obviously, but also Azula is crazy powerful, but she loses her mind in the end.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And shut up. And so you have these really powerful characters, but they give them very real struggles that aren't necessarily related to their power. And I think that's a really good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I've noticed, a lot of people have mentioned, is that's why I think Marvel's done a little better than DC as far as live action entertainment, or I guess
specifically movies.
Yeah, they're more. I guess if you I guess reading Marvel, you connect to the characters a little more because they're mostly just advanced humans, or they have more human struggles, and they have more kind of, I guess they err on the side of more realism, ordinary people stuck given power, not too much, but a lot.
It's especially true.
A lot of power.
It's especially true with the X-Men.
Yeah,
I think of what's her name,
Rogue.
Yeah,
and she's incredibly powerful, but it definitely comes across as more of a curse.
Yeah.
And she just kind of wants to be rid of the power at the end of the day.
I mean, if she was evil, then her power would be perfect.
Right, right. But she has to fight this battle inside her with all of that. So right.
And building you have teams Avengers. You have majority of those characters on the team are human, slightly more than human. Of course, you have Hulk and Thor, who are your your game changers, but
heavy hitters.
Yeah, heavy hitters, tanks. But of course, you need tanks. But it does help round out teams of having everybody that's OP or can repair the moon, race to go around the world and back. Or fly to the sun and back.
And I think maybe that's why in my opinion, one of the best pieces of DC media to come out ever was the Teen Titans show back in 2005, because they had really human struggles. They struggled with self-image and things that normal teenagers would struggle with, feeling inferior and insecure and things like that. And I think that's what made that show in particular really, really amazing.
Yeah. Bring some humanism in the show. Yeah.
Humanity.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a better way to say that.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess we all want our fair share of fantasy. We also want some realism, and especially I think more so nowadays because we want to be able to connect to or watch it.
We want to relate to characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and not to get too political right now, but I feel like it actually kind of relates back to people of color specifically feeling like they need to be represented in the media better.
Mm-hmm.
And like having someone that you're like, I understand this person and their struggles. Like that's a really important thing that I feel like white folk take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they're very closely connected, needing to be able to relate to people.
Yeah, yeah, and we've seen a lot more representation in so many forms of media. Even it goes back to even the small things of like having a character that was as equally powerful as some of the white characters, or having like a character that you could imagine yourself as, like Spider-Man. He was someone that he wore a mask, so you didn't see him in the and you didn't see when you're reading it, you don't see his body or his color, you don't see the color of his skin the whole time.
Right.
You can picture yourself as him, which I think helped a lot help bridge the gap or make him really popular. Probably why he's like the number 3 hero today.
All right.
Who's number 1?
I probably
Batman.
Well, now I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later. But that I think that wraps up our show for today. This has been another episode of Nerd Variety Podcast. What is going on next week?
So next week is our season finale. We will be wrapping up season 2. And to do that, this has been a weird year. So I feel like, a lot of stuff has been delayed, obviously, or just canceled. So instead of kind of wrapping up what we got this year and seeing what's happened, we can do some of that. We may do some of that, but I also just kind of want to do a sort of what stuff are you watching? Maybe if you're playing games, what are you playing? I also had in there listening to.
Yeah, I will try to not ramble about how much I've been enjoying getting back into K-pop recently.
I knew you were going to say K-pop as soon as you started that sentence. But yeah.
My love has been revitalized.
What you been enjoying lately?
So we'll talk about that next time.
Yep. And that'll be next week's episode. Until then, be safe, everyone. Support each other. Be friendly.
Love each other.
Yes. All right. But also, nerd out.
Bye.
Yep.